it had to be really clear. Like, we're going to have to actually work harder to tell the real, unvarnished story because I'm Gord's brother. And I think, in the end, and Jake and I talked about it, he said, this can either be a weakness or a strength. And he was right, because I really knew a lot of the inner workings of the band, mostly from Gord's perspective, however. I kind of felt like when we were talking about some of the, the more difficult subjects in the band's history.
Yep.
And, it's tensions, tensions that build up over years and years and years of being a huge band and a creative force.
And guys who met when you were 15,
High
16,
school.
right? Like,
High school.
and that's where your relationships are cast, and then you grow up for 30 years together.
Well, and then you start to have wives and kids.
Yeah.
And
My friends, the Tragically Hip.
I just am struck by the sheer amount of footage that exists and what a gift that is, but also what it was emotional for me watching it.
These are legacy docs, and they are based on the strength of the archive. Like, it can only be as good as your archive, basically. And you got interviews and all that. If you don't have footage from, like, really close to the story, ideally from the actual story, but if you don't have the archive, you can't bring it to life. You can tell the story, but you can't bring it to life. And it was obviously really important to have that visceral experience while you're watching.
You take us there. You take us then.
well,
right?
and footage and pictures.
Yeah.
There was a lot of pictures.
Where were you going for some of the concert footages?
Well,
fantastic.
So there were these sort of pools of archive that we knew about, and we just sort of had to get that in motion. But then some of the other pieces that came to light were there's these shots, you see them in the earliest days. They're clearly backstage somewhere, like Gord's flipping a bottle cap and Johnny's, looking into camera saying, "Who are you?" And that actually is from Bishop's University. They were playing the student pub. Well, we had this hip fan, Andrew Lassays, and he was reaching out to all these student pubs. Now, remember, people who were there in the 80s graduated and moved on to their lives. But he felt like because of student newspapers and things, there would be a chain, you'd be able to follow the source. We end up finding this guy living in L.A. He's actually in the film business. He was the one who shot the footage. He's had it sitting on his shelf for 40 years, and that was that footage of the guys just hanging out together. Somebody asked Robbie, "What did you have for breakfast?" And he says, 2 beers and an aspirin. Well, this came from this guy in L.A. who's been sitting on this tape for 40 years. So, like, finds like that, the early episode, the archive is critical. Before much music kicks in and before these national, sort of media outlets start covering the band. And back in the 80s, nobody had video cameras.
In my hometown.
The one and only time I saw the Hip live was at the Misty Moon here in Halifax, which might have been 89, 90?
90.
And I understand that is, there's new music coming out or a new release regarding that, or with that people who are at that show will be interested in.
So we released a single called "Get Back Again," which was sort of the holy grail of unreleased Hip songs.
Yeah.
It actually went to rock radio in June. It closes the doc. The end credits of episode 4 is that song, and the reason it became the holy grail of unreleased Hip songs is because there was a live version of it that was on Live at the Misty Moon. That was the Much Music special, and that song was the most bootlegged song of any Hip song, and it was never released. The special edition version of that, there's a special edition. It's like comes in this fancy case, and it's all these extra stuff. And one of the extra things is a 7-inch single of "Get Back Again," the studio version, but the B-side is the Live at the Misty Moon. So there's "Back to Halifax Again," and there's a big tie-in to that. So, and this is the 40th anniversary of the band. And I
Yeah.
think that's why when Mike and I sat down and we said we have to put it out in 2024 because that's the 40th anniversary of the band.